Tonight, the WHO calls the coronavirus a global health emergency.
We'll look at what that means for Canadians.
We're going to be pushing to make sure to maintain family units.
Plus, the hurdles Ottawa says it faces in getting Canadians home.
Gauging the Liberal response and the Conservative race. At issue is here.
Why Canada is doing a DNA test on the remains of a Flight 752 passenger.
And it's the eve of Brexit, but not everything is all wrapped up.
That means more clock watching in the year to come.
Margaret Evans takes a rollicking look at what's next for the UK. This is The National. The coronavirus outbreak is now a global public health emergency. That is according to the World Health Organization.
It has been avoiding calling it that for days as the virus spread, but no longer. The most pressing concern now, that the current outbreak could trigger another in a country less prepared to handle it than China. This move, this declaration, is designed to help prevent that.
The virus has now infected nearly 10,000 people in China alone. 213 have died, and tonight the United States increased its travel advisory to the country, telling Americans do not travel there. But as Vicadopia shows us, the WHO was actually full of praise today for how China has handled the outbreak so far.
Hospitals in China are overwhelmed. New confirmed cases are adding up by the hour. Despite strict containment, the coronavirus has jumped to at least 18 countries, creating the potential for foreign outbreaks.
For all of these reasons, I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern.
This extraordinary step was taken to better coordinate resources, research, and measures to stop the spread of the virus.
We don't know what sort of damage this virus could do if it were to spread in a country with a weaker health system.
Health officials are already seeing a troubling development in cases outside China. At least 4 cases of person-to-person transmission in Vietnam, Japan, Germany, and now the U.S.
This second case did not travel to China, making this the first person-to-person transmission of the novel coronavirus in the United States.
Countries are being extra cautious, advising against travel to China, even quarantining an entire cruise ship against the advice of the WHO, which seems determined to praise and protect China.
This is the time for facts, not fear. This is the time for science, not rumors.
This infectious disease doctor says the WHO had little choice but to call the emergency despite China's best efforts.
We always recognize outbreaks in hindsight. And so now they're playing catch up and they're being very aggressive trying to control this. So you can actually congratulate China for being really aggressive, but at the same time say it seems to be getting away.
China is putting a brave face on its containment efforts, celebrating the discharge of recovered patients as the number of hospital admissions grows. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
So, does a global public health emergency require new action from Canada? Well, that question was put to the health minister today.
We are actually up to date with the recommendations of the World Health Organization. I think there's an implication that we need stronger countries need to support the weaker countries in the world.
So the minister saying there, Canada doesn't need to do anything differently from what it's already doing. So let's talk about that. Dr. Susie Hoda is an infectious diseases physician. Just on that point, I mean, what are the lines of defense that are in place in Canada such that Canadians should be reassured of what the government's saying?
Right, and I completely agree that we are prepared for this. So the first thing is being able to detect anybody who might have this kind of infection. And that requires not only having good screening processes in place at the portals of entry to our healthcare system, as well as in places like airports, which may or may not help to actually detect people as they come into the city or into the country, but could be an added measure. So being able to detect is important through screening, but also through diagnostics, so having tests available to actually find cases. But beyond that, having surveillance systems and being able to collect that information and feed it back appropriately to all the different levels of our healthcare, our public health system, and internationally share that information. And that helps to guide some of the containment strategies. So that's some of the important components. And then, of course, if we find cases, being able to follow up on people who are actually contacts of those cases, and being able to have a good strategy in place to monitor them and have them followed properly.
So then speak directly to those people who are still worried, even despite that. I mean, like people who have that kind of gnawing question in the back of their mind, but couldn't all of this change on a dime?
Well, things are rapidly changing, and I think that's part of what's fueling the concern of a lot of the people who are alarmed, right? Yes, things change rapidly in these emerging infectious diseases, but that should alone not be enough to get people alarmed, right? We have to have trust in our public health system and in the people who are actually dealing with this problem. So, I think it's the big message to get out there is be concerned. This is a public health issue that's facing the entire world, but there's no need to panic at this point.
Dr. Hoda, thanks for being on.
Thank you.
So inside China, the province at the center of this outbreak is still in lockdown, with some people from Canada locked in. 196 have requested help getting out, and a flight is planned. But as David Cochrane explains, not everyone will be allowed to get on that plane.
Hi, thank you.
Skype has been their link to Canada as they search for a way back to Canada. But now a difficult situation could lead to a difficult choice.
The person I spoke with said that unfortunately permanent residents will not be able to leave.
It's a policy that could split them up. Megan Millward and her 2 children are Canadian citizens. Her husband, their father, Zhang Liu, is a permanent resident. So Millward may have to take her kids to Canada and leave her husband behind.
I would like it to work out so that all 4 of us can go, but because of the unavailability of medical support here, if there's a way to get the kids out, we have to do it.
That's China's decision, not Canada's, and it's not just permanent residents. China doesn't recognize dual citizenship for any countries, which means if a Canadian or anyone else traveled to China on a Chinese passport, they may be stuck.
I'm just not certain at this time if my wife and daughter will be on that flight.
I sent you some picture about her.
Monty Gisborne's family is also caught up in this. He's a Canadian citizen at home in BC. His wife and daughter are permanent residents visiting relatives stuck in Wuhan.
They deserve no less protection than anybody else, and I want them to get that protection. They deserve it.
We're going to be pushing to make sure to maintain family units.
That's Canada's push. So far, China hasn't budged.
As the World Health Organization has declared I think it's called an international emergency, perhaps these policies can evolve, but so far I can only say what has occurred today. And certainly as Canada, we will advocate to be able to repatriate every Canadian.
Every Canadian and every family member who is a permanent resident. Canada is willing, it just might not be able, unless Canadian officials can convince China to change a long-standing policy. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
That plane full of Canadians could still be a couple of days away from takeoff. The federal government is working out logistics with Chinese authorities, and in a city under quarantine, there are a lot of them.
We need to make sure that the manifest of the people would be on board is shared with all the local authorities to allow people to leave their home and go to the airport.
So you're talking about permission and also a plan for how to get people to the airport. With public transit suspended in Wuhan and driving in many areas banned, 6,000 cabs have been assigned to help the 11 million residents get around. Part of Canada's planning involves securing enough of those cabs to get Canadians to the plane.
Now, scientists suspect this coronavirus may have originated in bats before it jumped to humans. But interestingly, the bats aren't getting sick. Why not?
One really interesting thing about bats is that they're the only truly flying mammal. And that's got to have some impact on its physiology.
In 30 minutes, the push to decode the bat response to this virus and put it to work for humans.
Iran has returned all 13 victims of Flight 752 to the families who wanted to bury them in Canada. But what might seem like the end of a bureaucratic and emotional ordeal could be just the beginning. Ashley Burke has a family with doubts over their loved ones' remains and whether they are what Iran says they are.
Added to the horror, grief, and complexity of repatriation, now there's also mistrust.
I would like to make sure this is my family member. This belongs to my family member.
CBC News is offering this man confidentiality. He's worried his family in Iran could face repercussions if he speaks out.
I don't trust they have done the test properly, and I don't trust that they respect us. They respect our relatives' remain.
Iran's president has promised transparency and justice. For the family, that's not enough.
But I don't trust, again, because of lack of transparency and denial of the authorities in Tehran.
The family has turned to the Canadian government to test the remains. They say they've been assured they'll get results soon, an act that carries risks.
If it turns out that the DNA test doesn't match, I think then we're into a situation where the Iranians will be quite angry about this and be very defensive about it, and perhaps even suggest that Canada has ulterior motives in doing this and that they're trying to embarrass Iran.
That embarrassment could hurt Canada's efforts to try and get more access to the investigation. A delicate balance to strike, but the government says Iran has been cooperative.
We focused on expecting or explicitly demanding that family wishes are respected. We were given assurances by the Iranian authorities that they understand that and that they intend on meeting and acquiescing to families' demands.
It is hard to put the piece together, find a closure,
Right now, he fears the worst, that his loved one is still in Iran. His only hope is that he's wrong. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
A day after the U.S. signed the new NAFTA deal, the Liberal government is urging lawmakers to speed the process along here.
It is in the national interest for us to finish this process, to put this process behind us, to have the economic and political certainty that ratification will bring.
Tabled yesterday, Bill C-4 implements the Canada-United States-Mexico agreement. It has the support so far of all opposition parties except the Bloc Québécois. The Bloc's concerned the agreement doesn't do enough to protect Quebec's aluminum industry. Canada is the only partner that has not yet ratified the deal. Now, the federal government also moved closer to its promised ban on single-use plastics. It's been waiting for a scientific report to emerge, and today it did. But as Salima Shivji shows us, not everyone's so patient.
At this grocery store and every other Sobeys across the country, a major shift. As of tomorrow, plastic bags are out in favor of more environmentally friendly alternatives.
Sustainability for us is something we're absolutely committed to. This is a first step, a significant step, but it's going to be more to come.
That means 225 million of these a year will be taken out of circulation. No complaints from most shoppers.
There's so much garbage and things that shouldn't be going into the garbage going into the landfill. And I think it's wonderful. I think all stores should have it.
I think it's great. I haven't used plastic bags in about a year and a half now.
You know, we don't have much choice. We have to look after the environment and stuff.
Support from Canadians is what the Liberals are banking on as the government moves closer to a ban on single-use plastics. A new report spells out the science to back up the plan. It shows the vast majority of Canada's plastic waste, 86%, sits in landfills, much of it also on shorelines, often choking animals or entrapping them. The sobering report has the NDP clamoring for a faster end to plastics.
There's no further studies needed. We know exactly the impact to the environment.
The Environment Minister doesn't plan to wait for more studies, but he says he's following proper procedure, consulting and allowing for companies to adapt.
We need to work through this. This is one of the reasons why we'll take to 2021 is to talk about the rate of phasing in the changes and to ensure that there are alternatives that are available.
He says 2021 is still the goal and he's not changing that. That means the government needs to decide which plastic products will be banned, and fast. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
Christine Sinclair is on top of the soccer world after another prolific performance last night. No other woman and no man has ever scored as many international goals. Cue the celebrations and the respect. Tanya Fletcher caught up with her today.
Christine Sinclair! She just broke the record!
That goal, number 185, landed Christine Sinclair in the history books.
She's humble, she's a leader, she's a legend.
The legend herself says her focus in that moment was clear.
All that I could think of was just hit the net, just like hit the target.
On the pitch, she's intense. Off the pitch, she's modest.
Christine Sinclair, captain, fantastic.
But even she acknowledges this is a big deal.
Something that I've been thinking about, obviously, for the past couple of years as the goals have sort of ticked away. And it's just an honor to be on the top of that list. It's pretty cool.
Until now, Abby Wambach's name has been top of the all-time goal-scoring list. And the rivalry between the two headlined by the U.S.-Canada semifinal at the 2012 London Olympics.
It is heartbreaking for Canada.
But this week, the competition is sidelined by congratulations. Wambach tweeting out, "Christine, history is made. Your victory is our victory. We celebrate with you."
Today, we get to celebrate Christine Sinclair.
The high praise echoed by Carrie Serwetnik, the first woman inducted into the Canadian Soccer Hall of Fame.
Use your skill!
She now runs a non-profit soccer program for girls and says what Sinclair has done for the sport is immeasurable.
This is a brand new era for girls to see women on the stage, front stage, and they're being successful in a sport that's male dominant.
What do you think of when you hear the name Christine Sinclair?
I just love how she's so kind and just her technique. I'm really inspired because she's one of those girls who just actually made it up to the top.
I think it proves all the stereotypes wrong because girls can be just as good as boys playing soccer, any sport.
And Sinclair's message back to them?
Like, dream those crazy dreams. Sometimes those wild ambitions as a child come true.
Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
And of course, the congratulations have been pouring in for Sinclair. Here's a taste from several Canadian sports legends.
Christine Sinclair, the GOAT.
We're so proud and honored to have played next to such an incredible woman.
Congrats, Christine, the greatest scorer of all time.
I just want to congratulate you in your international goal record.
Congratulations on breaking the all-time international goals record. What an accomplishment.
What a privilege to be able to mark this occasion, to hear about you breaking your record.
Christine, we are so very proud of you. Thank you for all the joy that you have brought us.
I don't think she's ever played the game for records and adulation, and she just enjoys it.
And social media was inundated with messages as well. Sinclair responded on Twitter with her typical humility. "Thank you to everyone for all the messages. I'm slightly overwhelmed."
We have a CBC Marketplace investigation tonight looking at how to rent a car without getting ripped off. Up next, we're going to show you what happened when they went undercover and pushed for answers.
Are you willing to change anything that you're doing right now based on the information that we've given you? You're not going to change anything.
Policies are online.
And Friday is Brexit Day. The UK finally leaves the EU. So now what?
Does Brexit make my passport expire? No.
And Donald Trump called his Mexico border wall impenetrable, but it may have met its match, a gust of wind. We're back in 2 minutes.
Since it's the last votes with our British colleagues, I would like to thank them for all their work in the European Parliament and I wish them all the best.
And with that, from EU lawmakers, Britain heads out of the European Parliament. After 3.5 years, Brexit is finally happening in a matter of hours. Remain supporters held their gathering outside the UK Parliament tonight so as not to clash with pro-Brexit celebrations tomorrow, which is supposedly Leave Day. Margaret Evans is watching this history unfold from London and reminds us tonight that for those who think numbing negotiations and relentless uncertainty for Britain and Europe are over, think again.
After all the tears and fears and angst and anger, tomorrow night when the clock strikes 11 here, midnight in Brussels, Britain will have left the European Union. Sort of. Tomorrow kicks off an 11-month transition period. That means Britain stays in the single market, follows EU regulations, and keeps paying membership dues. But it won't have a seat at the table or any say in EU decision-making. Brits will no longer be European Union citizens, but they will be able to travel freely across the EU, at least until the end of the year.
Boris Johnson is for Brexit.
Britain's Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has taken to Twitter to reassure people that Brexit is going to be good for them, using some props.
Does Brexit make my passport expire? No. But it does mean that you are entitled to a beautiful new blue passport.
That might not inspire much confidence in those worried Johnson won't be able to negotiate a trade deal with the EU by the end of the year like he's promised. They could extend the adjustment period, but Johnson has ruled that out, and that means more clock watching in the year to come. Speaking of clocks, leavers wanting to celebrate had asked that Big Ben come out from under all the scaffolding to bring in Brexit with a bong. Instead, they'll have to make do with a party here at Parliament Square, a new commemorative 50p Brexit coin, and a countdown clock beamed onto the wall at Downing Street. Oh yes, and the Conservative Party here is selling Got Brexit Done tea towels.
That's it, it's all over, finished.
Remainers say it's all a little bit gloating, sore winner syndrome.
We are never coming back, and the rest, frankly, is detail. I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye.
Britain's members of the European Parliament packed up their bags yesterday. They don't get to stay during the adjustment period, but not everyone was crowing. Tomorrow will mark the end of a 47-year partnership in a union born of 2 world wars, and Britain's exit will leave a hole. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Okay, now to some other stories making news across the country tonight. Beginning in Ontario, where a dozen people have been charged in connection to what's being called a once-in-a-decade drug bust. 9 months in the making. Project Daytona culminated in multiple raids in communities from Hamilton to the Ottawa region and into Quebec. Police say their goal was to cut off the drug supply at the top.
These are the individuals who would have provided drugs to street gangs, outlaw motorcycle gangs, as well as organized crime groups in all the communities.
They seized several kilograms of cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and cannabis. 12 men now face a combined 81 charges. One of Canada's largest oil and gas companies has pledged $50 million for new homes in Indigenous communities.
We hope to be able to facilitate a dialogue on Indigenous housing solutions in our country.
Cenovus Energy says it will spend $10 million per year for the next 5 years to build homes for 6 communities in northern Alberta. Some families in the area currently live in trailers without water, electricity, or heat. The energy giant calls this the largest community investment in the company's history. And yet another well-known Canadian retailer is facing an uncertain future. Some suppliers for lingerie retailer La Senza claim that the company isn't paying its bills and are asking a U.S. judge to force the chain into bankruptcy. According to court documents, one of its suppliers says La Senza owes it nearly $42 million. Founded in Quebec in 1990, the company has more than 300 stores around the world.
CBC's Marketplace investigates hidden fees at the car rental counter.
The quote was completely off. They had an additional fee required for insurance.
Up next, the insurance they are not allowed to sell you. And
we will continue to do everything we can.
In the face of a global health emergency, is the government doing enough? At Issue looks at its response to the coronavirus outbreak. We'll be right back. For lots of people, renting a car is cheaper and easier than owning one. But the industry has had clear examples of misleading prices and surprising extra fees. Canada's Competition Bureau has already punished several companies, and our colleagues at Marketplace discovered that others are still at it. Magda Gabraselassie investigates.
Jones.
When it comes to renting cars, Ryan Jones is a pro at the process.
You go in, what you're quoted, you get, and you leave.
But Jones says that's not what happened at Economy Rent-A-Car in Mississauga last summer. He thought he got a good deal with the online booking, but in person,
the quote was completely off. They had an additional fee required for insurance, which added something like $80 around that to the rental price.
an extra charge for using his credit card insurance. He's not alone. Marketplace has heard from other customers frustrated with the extra fee. So to find out if we'd get charged, we sent producers in with hidden cameras.
So if you want to use your personal insurance, then there will be a surcharge of $11.95 per day on top of the rest.
And kept hearing that covers
third-party liability coverage. So if you damage anybody else's car or if you hit any pedestrian, so we cover them.
But that charge is not listed under the base price.
It's deceptive. There's a culture in the industry around bogus charges, and that they don't seem to be able to get away from.
Remember that fee?
And just take liability, which is only $12.
Turns out they can't sell liability insurance. That's according to the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Rental car companies are required to insure their own fleets.
Arthi? Hi there.
We went looking for answers from the owner of this economy rent-a-car location. Arthi Sood says her employees misspoke, that it's actually a total protection fee to cover extra costs like towing.
Some companies charge, some don't. We do charge. Please read the terms and conditions.
Are you willing to change anything that you're doing right now based on the information that we've given you?
Absolutely not.
You're not
All
going
the
to change
policies
anything.
are online.
The Competition Bureau previously fined some car rental companies for misleading prices. Big chains like Hertz, Avis, Enterprise paid millions in fines. The Bureau tells us it continues to investigate similar practices in the online market and will take action if it finds evidence of false or misleading advertising. Magda Gebre-Selassie, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can see Magda's whole story tomorrow night on Marketplace. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern on CBC Television. You can also watch online on CBC Gem.
Next, tracing the coronavirus back to the source. Well, it was thought to have emerged in a seafood market in Wuhan. It now looks as if bats could be the culprit. So why aren't they getting sick?
But first, it is Thursday night, so Rosie's here with At Issue.
That's right. Parliament is back, and so there's a lot to talk about. A global health emergency, a new trade agreement, and a race few seem to want to win. Chantal, Althea, and Aaron Weary are all here, and we'll see you right after this break.
Parliament was back this week, but external events continue to dominate.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern.
And the federal government is being called on to act quickly.
We will continue to do everything we can to support those families, to secure their return to Canada.
We must be ready for the possible situation in which things would get worse.
It's time for the government to get off their platitudes and their generalities and start revealing to Canadians what their specific plans are.
So how is the government handling all of this? At Issue here to look at that response and everything that's already happened in this first week back. Chantal Hébert is in Montreal tonight, Althea Raj here in Ottawa, and Aaron Weary is also here in Ottawa tonight. Good of you to join us all. Okay, let's start with the coronavirus, now a global health emergency. The WHO says just late today. The government has been trying to find a way to get Canadians home that want to get home. And it is complicated. I'm not going to say this is an easy task, complicated further by the fact that they are dealing with China. But what does it tell us about how the government responds to these kinds of crises, these moments where you do have to take some action and move fairly quickly? Chantal.
At best it can. It's easy to say the government should be on standby for any crisis with planes ready to do whatever. But in this case, for instance, we do not have the kind of consular boots on the ground that larger countries may have. It's not because there are 200 Canadians who want to be airlifted home that they are in one location in a country that is curtailed travel from city to city. And then you have to think about the fact that once they land, do you let people spread out? And eventually, if they don't feel well, go to crowded emergency rooms where they stand if they are sick to make other people sick.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's a good example of the complexities, and I think that the Foreign Affairs Minister today also suggested that you have to have a manifest of all the passengers that you're willing to share with every level of Chinese authorities. So I mean, it's a huge task. Are they handling it the right way, do you think, Althea?
I don't know, because I don't actually know what the plan is, and they don't seem to know what their plan is either. I think that, I've worked in consular, so declaring a little conflict here, like 20 years ago. I think the government has learned a lot from, other evacuations, like Lebanon, for example. Yeah. I do genuinely think public servants do the most that they can. What is interesting to me is, we've had this, we had the Ukrainian flight being shot down. Consular cases are increasingly a big thing around the world, right? You have more and more Canadians traveling. Like there were just the U.S. alone, there were more than 40 million trips last year. People are moving, and we need to do things when things go wrong. And there's an expectation, especially from people who, their relationship with the federal government is not like a relationship with your local government. Unless you're getting EI or, CPP, you have very little reason to be calling the federal government unless it's like an immigration case or a consular case. And in the last cabinet shuffle and the parliamentary secretaries being doled out, there was not a parliamentary secretary for consular affairs. And you have, Almar Al-Gabra, who's now in charge of kind of dealing with the families who are affected by the crisis in Iran. And now we have the parliamentary secretary for foreign affairs dealing with this. But you should have somebody, and arguably maybe you should even have like a junior minister that does consular affairs.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I think some of the delay as well that we've seen, Aaron, was created by the fact that the Canadians that were there hadn't necessarily registered with the government. So
yeah, I mean, you don't want to necessarily compare crises here because they're all sort of different. But this government has shown itself on NAFTA, on the plane in Iran, capable of sort of fairly quickly reacting and marshalling its forces as much as it can to deal with a situation and to be proactive and sort of nimble with it. I think in this case, there's a couple complications. One is just the very nature of the problem, the very nature of an infectious disease and dealing with that as a threat. And second, I think very early in this one, it seems like the opposition is pretty ready to challenge how the government's handling it and even criticize how the government's handling it. And I don't know that you saw that in previous crises. The government seems to be taking, I guess, a fairly proactive approach in terms of communications, in terms of putting its ministers out there. But in this one, as much as it's too early to sort of say whether it's, they're succeeding or failing at it, I think there's a certain feeling of like how hard this is to sort of put your hands around and say, okay, we've got this, we know what we're doing, and it's running up against that fact that the opposition is not at all shy, really, in the early going of challenging the government on this.
Yeah, and that might be the difference that they're experiencing as a minority government for the first time. You talked about one of the things that they managed fairly well, and that was NAFTA. Some of the legislation tabled yesterday, another piece today. Here's what Chrystia Freeland had to say about that.
I was very happy yesterday to see the Conservatives and the NDP and the Greens voting for the deal. I think our country is stronger when in some key areas we can have a broad national consensus on how we proceed as a country.
So I don't want to talk about the new NAFTA because we've talked about that a lot. I would rather talk about the fact that the government is going to get this through. It seems like it's going to be a fairly easy win, and whether they should be wary of getting overly confident that this is how the rest of things will go. Chantal.
I don't think that anyone anywhere is under any delusion that this is kind of the prototype of things in Parliament going forward, for a very simple reason. Usually in a minority situation, the pressure is on the government to find support. At this point, the pressure is on all opposition parties, maybe not the Greens, but certainly the NDP, the Conservatives for sure, or even the Bloc Québécois, to actually give this a pass, and that pressure comes from allies who are premiers in provinces like BC in the case of the NDP, or Alberta, Ontario in the case of the Conservatives, and even Quebec in the case of the Bloc Québécois. So how often have you seen on an issue of major importance a unanimous press release from the premiers urging the opposition to support the government. I don't think I've seen many of those over the past few years.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen with every piece of legislation they have, that's for sure. Althea.
Well, there is no other piece of legislation like this. I mean, what's special about the new NAFTA is that they can't really amend it. Nobody in their right minds think that a parliamentarian in Canada is going to force things to be reopened in Washington, have Donald Trump decide to reopen this deal in Mexico as well. So there is the government has more leverage than it will ever have on any other piece of legislation that is likely to come in front of this minority government.
That's a good point. Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, practically and politically, there aren't a lot of reasons for the opposition to choose this hill to die on. Both because, as Althea says, it's too late to make changes to the bill, but also politically, you know, I think everyone is sort of satisfied that this is what the deal is, and the government did, from the very start, did a fairly good job of sort of covering its bases and bringing in Conservative and NDP voices to make sure that they were sort of planning the bill in a way or planning the deal in a way that it could get domestic support. I think there is, though, for the government, it's a nice way to start, I guess, to sort of play the greatest hits and go, hey, look, you know, we settled NAFTA. But there is now, I think, this real need to sort of move forward and start putting some things in the window that really build out an agenda for this parliament. That's, you know, this government gave itself a lot of time to get ready, a lot of time to transition, and there really is now, I think you can feel sort of a vacuum that has to be filled with some new measures.
Yeah. I want to do one go around on the Conservative Party quite quickly, and we'll do more for the podcast. But it was again this week about the people who didn't want to run. So my question, it's not simple, but why does no one actually want this job? Or very few people seem to want this job, Chantal.
Well, perhaps because it's not an entry-level position, for one. For two, the hurdles to having a campaign that is valid and that has the money to show for it are pretty significant. I think the problem the Conservatives are having is that their campaign is not dying but doing badly on the field of expectations, because they had the dream campaign and it was a dream. And now they're back down to earth, and maybe it's not totally as exciting as when people imagined Rana Ambrose and Jean Charest having this great fight to the finish.
Yeah, there do seem to be people sort of disappointed that the drama is not quite what they expected. 20 seconds, Althea and Aaron. Althea.
I think people think they can't win, and that's why they're not throwing their name in their hat in the ring. Like, you look at Peter MacKay is like a huge figure in the party, and he's been basically kind of paving that road for several years now, and the challenge is quite enormous, especially if you have no name recognition or you're you can't win this without being, I think, already present nationally, and there aren't that many people who fit that bill.
Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of sort of people that have looked at this party and decided they can't win a leadership race, people who would rather be tending to their families or to their jobs in the private sector, and then to a certain amount of just a lack of succession planning maybe in the Harper years. I don't know that Stephen Harper really spent a lot of time thinking about preparing a cohort of ministers who might pick up the job after he left, and I think maybe you're seeing a bit of that gap now.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll leave it there. This is a podcast, but there's another podcast I do. It's called Party Lines, and it returns back by popular demand today. But you can tune in every Thursday for a primer on the week's political news. It's a different take on things. My co-host, Elamine Abdul-Mahmoud, that pleasant guy, and I will break things down for you in audio form.
Okay, coming up next, do bats hold the secret to a coronavirus vaccine? Scientists think they're the source of the virus, but something about them makes them immune. What that might be.
And take a look at this. No, it's not popcorn. A hint, it is really, really hot, and we have never been this close before. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Returning to our top story now. As governments around the world take steps to control the coronavirus outbreak, scientists are scrambling to discover its source. Now, we know it originated in the city of Wuhan, China. Also, that it likely initially spread to humans from animals. And now, as Christine Birak tells us, they are zeroing in on bats.
Yeah, I remember all this.
Bioethicist Carrie Bowman once visited the now infamous seafood market in Wuhan, China. It was packed full of live and dead animals. A leading theory is that a worker inside this market contracted the virus from an animal.
You've got urine and feces spraying from one enclosure to another, creating really an incubator for emerging viruses.
Now a newly published paper strongly suggests, like SARS, the original source of this virus was bats. Scientists sequenced its genome, then compared it to other coronaviruses living inside horseshoe bats from eastern China. They found a close match, slightly different from SARS, but in the same family.
Most of it will come back to bats.
Professor Scott Weiss studies and treats infectious diseases in animals. He says bats live all over the world. They're essential in pollinating fruit and eating insects. And they've been passing diseases to one another in their vast colonies for thousands of years. But Weiss says they also have an important trait in common with us.
Bats are mammals, so they are related to us. And if certain components of that bat are somewhat human-like, it makes that ability of the virus to cross a lot easier.
Meaning, a virus that likes living in a bat may also like living in us. The question is, why don't the viruses sicken or kill the bats?
They're the only truly flying mammal, and that's got to have some impact on its physiology.
Peter Daszak studied bats in China for 15 years. He speculates that as bats evolved to fly, somehow their immune systems changed.
If we could find out, the chemicals that bats use within the body to regulate viruses, maybe some of those could be used as potential drugs against some of those viruses.
Flying also gave bats the ability to easily spread disease. Their bites, urine, and feces can infect people and animals on farms and in the wild.
The market that I saw in Wuhan, we counted 56 different species. So a lot of these species, and probably almost 2/3 of them, were wild.
Stopping the sale of wildlife in these markets would help, but people are also encroaching on the areas where bats live. Scientists say we need to do a better job studying and monitoring bats. More outbreaks like this one are inevitable, but lessons can be learned from this virus with the goal of getting ahead of the next one. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
We're watching several international stories tonight, including the high winds in Southern California that are being blamed for toppling over portions of President Trump's signature border wall. Officials say concrete used to hold up steel panels hadn't quite dried before the high winds took out a portion of the wall. Several trees on the Mexican side are basically now holding it up. The wall, which Trump has called virtually impenetrable, has reportedly cost $11 billion. Meanwhile, officials have released images of what they say is the longest illicit cross-border tunnel ever discovered, over 1 kilometer long. And new images are allowing us to see the sun like we've never seen it before. Revealed in the closest detail yet, turbulent, boiling gas covers the surface. These spectacular images make visible the cell-like structures that contain hot plasma. You can see them rising and cooling off before sinking below in a process called convection. Captured by a powerful new telescope, the images unmask features as small as 30 kilometers wide, which on the sun is really tiny. Scientists hope this will help better predict potentially disruptive solar storms.
Okay, next on The National, get the candles ready. But for this birthday boy, there could be too many to fit on the cake. Our moment is next. Well, you won't have seen many cakes with a number like that over top. That number's no joke. Arnold Hawkins turned 109 today. He's from New Brunswick, and he had a household full of loved ones to celebrate alongside him. His family saying that even nearing the end of his 11th decade, he has not lost a sense of humor. His birthday is our moment.
You know your birthday?
Who?
Your birthday.
My birthday, yeah.
What is it? January?
January 30.
That's right. Good job.
Yeah.
Do you know what year you were born? 19 what?
You tell me.
I'll tell you. Smart cookie you are. 1911?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just flabbergasted that he's lasted this long and just so proud
So proud for your father to be 109 years old. He's fun to be with all day long. He said, like, well, how did that happen? How did I get to be the oldest man? And I said, well, Dad, you didn't die.
They do have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, sir. It would be a fool's errand to try to decode the key to a long life.
Absolutely.
But fun fact, he was a fisherman all his life. Started at 17, retired at 70.
And he's very wise to have that size of cake, because at last count, and I have to look at this here, at the beginning of 2019, Arnold had 5 children, 14 grandchildren, 25 great-grandchildren, and 5 great-great-grandchildren. They will demolish that cake. That is the national for January 30th. Good night.
Good night.